I have these moccasins, and these are a part of my dance regalia. These moccasins are over a decade old, and they've got quite the story behind them. And not like an amazing story, I mean like a story of silliness or dumb fuckery. So before we get started, I just want to put out a disclaimer that I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm just taking information off the internet and using that to get this job done that I need to get done. I don't really know the chemical makeup of Gorilla Glue or the type of solvents that work on breaking it down, but I just did some research, aka Googling, and found some information that I'm hoping will help me. If not, then I guess I'm just gonna have to carry on. So now that that's out of the way, I want to explain what happened to these moccasins and why I'm sitting here today. If you don't want to hear the story time and you just want to go straight to the information, I'll put a timestamp right here, and you can skip to that. The moccasins. Yeah, these don't really look like moccasins, do they? That's because these are the moccasins. So what happened before was there was another person that was heavily involved in my entire regalia. She was pretty much just like a native auntie to me. She made my dress, she found all kinds of additions to my regalia, and she found the leather for the original moccasins that I had. Now I wanted beaded moccasins, so before putting the leather together as moccasins, she put them on a loom so that I could bead them, and this is what I came up with. Now it was like an entire piece of leather, and it was sewed into moccasins, and we used a pattern. It was done by according to my size, apparently. The problem was when I had finally finished beading these, when my native auntie sewed them together, they wound up being too short. At the time, I wore a size 8 shoe, and that's what the pattern had said, but they kind of wound up being more like a 7, 6.5, like really small. But I wore them anyway, and that wound up being a problem for me. I don't remember how long I wore them. It couldn't have been that long. If not an entire summer, a couple powwows, I don't know. But I wore them anyway, and I danced in them, and they were too small. But something happened to my toenail. I remember actually like being able to push on the nail and it would like go up and down. So my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor was like, yeah, this toenail is completely dead. It's barely hanging on by a thread on your toe, and we need to take it off. So she grabbed a pair of tweezers. She's like, all right, we're gonna count to 3. And I'm like, okay. And she counts to 2 and yanks it off. And there was a nail growing underneath it too. It was a shit show. It was an experience. So once that happened, we're like, okay, there's gotta be something that we can do. But neither of us were really sure what to do. Of course I wasn't. I mean, I had to have been like 16 at the time, maybe. I don't know. Not well versed on how to deal with a problem like this, obviously. And neither was my native auntie. So she inquired around and asked other native aunties on the powwow trail how they would deal with this situation. And she ended up coming across this one person that said, what you need to do is you need to cut the area that is beaded off, remove all the other leather, and then get another pair of moccasins that fit, and then glue the beaded area onto another pair of moccasins, specifically with Gorilla Glue. Yeah, so that's what we did. Found another pair of moccasins, made sure that they fit before purchasing them. These were already sewn by somebody on the powwow trail who was selling them like at a booth at a powwow. And then we went and picked up some Gorilla Glue, and we sat down together and, you know, got going. So, well, we did basically was coat the bottom of this with the Gorilla Glue and arranged it onto the moccasins and just let the glue dry and harden. A lot of this is vague, by the way, but I do remember us having to stuff the moccasins, put some sort of stuffing in here, because if we allowed the Gorilla Glue to dry without the moccasins being stuffed, then it would be like flat and just not able to shape to my foot as I wear them. Now that I look back on it, I'm kind of just like, if it's gonna harden that much, like why didn't we predict this in the future? I just dealt with that for years. I refused to never wear these again because, I mean, I spent so much time beating this, so much hard work, and I was so proud of it. I was not about to just give up wearing them. And it wasn't that bad. You really couldn't even tell that they were messed up just by looking at me from afar, but I could tell because they weren't very comfortable. So that's when, about 2010 to 2012, so I would have had the moccasins for maybe like 6 years or so, 5 or 6 years. I decided that I was going to address this problem and try to fix it. I ripped this off of the moccasin, which explains why the top is kind of missing here, because it's all over on here. I believe I did this at a time where I needed to get the job done ASAP. So it was either the day before powwow or the morning of the powwow. I know that I needed to get it done really quickly. So what I did was I took nylon thread, which is what I use for beading because it's thin and it doesn't rip very easily like cotton thread does. And I just kind of sewed it onto the moccasin. The only crappy part though was I did it really quickly because I needed to get to the powwow, right? So it was kind of just like a hack job, and it still didn't solve the problem of the beaded part being really stiff and uncomfortable. That native auntie had to have some kind of method for how she uses Gorilla Glue to put beading on another moccasin. I kind of questioned if she had ever done it before, or if she was just like, I know, try this. Or if she has done it before and she just either didn't relay the instructions very well, or my native auntie didn't understand the instructions very well, or there weren't enough. I don't know, I wasn't there. So yeah, that's the end of my story time with these moccasins. Now you know what happened. And if you've made it this far, you're probably thinking, wow, this girl's really dumb, I'm going to quit watching. Or, wow, this girl's really dumb, I'm going to keep watching. Or, wow, this girl is really dumb, and so am I because I did the same goddamn thing. She's going to help me. And that's why I'm putting it out into the world of YouTube, because, well, I've already documented fixing up another part of my regalia. I figured I would document this part as well. And I could not find anything about removing Gorilla Glue from moccasins, so I guess I'm the first to put it out there. I did find information about removing Gorilla Glue from leather, but not necessarily moccasins. So you've either made it this far or you've skipped to here. I'm going to get started now. So what I have here are some cotton balls, 2 terry cloth wash rags, a bowl of water that was warm, and nail polish remover. So the reason that I have nail polish remover is because the internet says that acetone is a solvent that can break down Gorilla Glue. So that's what I have here. I also have a butter knife in case I need to scrape. And I have a towel down in case I get messy. This is actually really bendy compared to what it used to be. When this first took place, this was so hard that I could barely get my foot into the moccasins. Okay, so the instructions that I found, the first direction was to take a cotton ball and soak half of it with the acetone nail polish, and then kind of dab it on an area and work it. I don't think I'm going to be as worried about this part because it's very bendy and it really isn't that hard. But these areas where the leather from the moccasin came off when I ripped it off, these are the more tougher parts that don't really want to move. And that's because they have thicker glue, I think, spot that's similar. I've tried to dig into it with a knife. So far nothing is happening with that. But over here on this spot where I've pressed down with it with nail polish remover, it's coming off with the knife. So this is kind of a slow method. An idea that I had was to like fill up a bowl and soak this in there or something, but this nail polish remover is really strong smelling, and I think that if I were to do something like that, I would need to do it outside, but that's not an option for me right now. So I kind of had a weird idea. So I have here a medicine dropper, and I think what I want to do is fill it up and kind of use it to pour it on here so that there's a nice thick coat of nail polish remover, and throwing it in the garbage when I'm done. So let's see if that works. So here is a medicine dropper full of remover. I'm just gonna take this and kind of try and coat. And I am doing like the smallest, just kind of like drops. So far, all is looking well for the strings that are holding the beads on. I've come across a thread that I need to be careful with. So you remember that really difficult spot that I had tested without any nail polish remover? Yeah, it's completely gone now. Safe to say this method works. So I'm just going to kind of go ahead on this and get back to you because it's going to take a really long time. When I get finished with this one, I will check back in. Hey, I'm back. Today is the end of day 2. Today I worked on the other piece of beaded leather, getting the Gorilla Glue off of that. So here we are. This is the piece that I did yesterday, and this is the piece that I finished not too long ago. So what I ended up doing was completely ditching the cotton balls. Those weren't doing it for me because I'm just working on a large area. I ended up continuing to use that medicine dropper and just kind of like doing small areas at a time, scraping those off, and the medicine dropper really worked great. Like warm water, lukewarm water, and then I soaked the moccasins in the water for about 15 minutes or so. And then after I soaked that in water, I just took a regular terry washcloth and then rubbed the back of the leather to get just any tiny little bits of Gorilla Glue that were stuck to it. So yeah, the next step is washing the bottoms of the actual moccasins because they're filthy, and then after that I will be sewing these back onto them. Not gluing, sewing.